Hey everybody. For those who don't know, I posted a post to the Q Computer Company Facebook page. My DXG 567v camcorder has suffered a fatal firmware corruption. It no longer powers on. I don't have any batteries in it, but basically, you pull this power switch and it will do exactly what you see right now. Nothing. So now I got me another camcorder. And you can probably see its reflection on this screen. It's a Kodak Zi6. And it's a very wonderful camera. I'm going to get the focus right here. But basically, something really funny I want to mention. The Kodak Zi6 and the DXG 567v are very, very, very close similar. And let me explain what was going on and how this camera's firmware got corrupted. See, basically, I bought a Kodak Zi6 off eBay, the one I'm shooting video with right now. It's in very good condition, and they come with this case, all for $30 with free shipping. So it's working very good. And when I did that, I noticed, I started looking online because, you know me, I like to do modifications to my cameras, and I planned on putting an external microphone port in the camera I'm shooting video with right now. So I did some looking online, and I happened to notice that the DXG's motherboard, inside this camera, the motherboard is so close similar to the Kodak Zi6. I mean, the processors and everything were very close similar. I mean, the layout of the board is very, very close similar. So I figured, hey, this camera's in bad shape already. Why not go ahead and try to see if I can flash Kodak Zi6 firmware to this camcorder? Because Kodak does have the firmware update available on their site. And here's where things got a little weird. On this camera and the Zi6, to access the service menu, you turn on the camera and you press both the delete and play buttons, and then you get access to a menu, and then you would press this button to go to the firmware, to tell you what firmware is installed, and then you would press it again to flash the firmware. At least that's what the Kodak camera does. Apparently the DXG does things a little different. Because what I did is, the file for the Kodak Zi6 firmware is named DVS167.bin, and the firmware for the DXG 567 is DVS567.bin. And so you get the idea. These cameras, I believe, they're manufactured by the same company. But so anyways, I renamed the DVS167 file to DVS567, load onto an SD card, and turn on the camera, push these two buttons, and I just noticed that the light was flashing on the camera. Didn't know, I didn't have an idea what it was doing. I should have known that it was actually trying to flash a firmware without asking me. Normally you would think a camera would ask you if you want to flash a firmware, but the DXG 567 just keeps a blank screen. All you see is a flashing light, and foolish me, I pulled the battery door open, and that was the end of it. So there is a chance. I can't guarantee this because I don't know for sure. So you're doing this at your own risk. The Kodak Zi6 firmware may work on a DXG 567v. And there's some big advantages to the Kodak firmware versus the DXG firmware. You have a few more options in your menu, and you have the option to go 60 frames per second in 720p. The DXG can only do 30 maximum, but the Kodak Zi6 with very similar firmware can do, very similar hardware can do 60 frames. So anyways, I have a second Kodak Zi6 I bought. And like I say, after this camera messed up, I decided to go ahead and buy another Zi6 used as a donor camera This camera here has a big crack in the screen. It's not actually in the LCD itself, but it's in the plastic that covers the screen. And it does have quite a bit of cosmetic wear and stuff on it. The camera I'm shooting with right now looks practically brand new compared to this one. So we're going to go ahead and do a little teardown in these videos, in this video, to show you the similarities of these two cameras. And if you look at the outsides of them, it's kind of obvious. On the DXG 567, this is where the retractable USB thing would be at, the button. But of course mine doesn't have that anymore because I took it out. But more or less you would press this and you had this little retractable USB thing. It's kind of like the flip. The lens assembly is in the exact same spot. The Zi6, however, does have a better quality lens assembly. The one in the DXG is not very well built, and it has had it. Because if you listen, when I go between macro and standard, you hear a loud click. And I actually had to put some glue and a screw in here to stop it from going down too far, because it would actually get out of standard focus, so the video would be out of focus. Let's keep looking here. If you notice, on the Kodak Zi6, SD card gets loaded in here. On the DXG, it gets loaded in here, and of course there's that focus slider that I just showed you. And on the DXG 567, this is where your batteries get installed. AA batteries. And on the Zi6, it's exactly the same way. And of course, that's the reason why I like the Zi6, because it takes AA's. And let's say, unlike with lithium-ion batteries, if you run out of batteries, you're pretty much out of luck. But if you have a camera that takes AA's and you run out of rechargeable AA's, you can just go to the store and get you some alkalines to get you through. And just continue looking here. If you notice, our hookups are in exactly the same spot. On the DXG, one's covered with the external microphone hookup, but they're basically the same camera, or at least highly similar. Okay, now you just saw how close similar these cameras are on the outside. It's time to go ahead and see how close similar they are on the inside. First, I'm going to start by tearing this camera apart to get the parts out of it. Exactly the same as the DXG. And it's funny, I just did a I don't think I even made a video about this modification that I done to my DXG 567v. I upgraded its LCD screen from a from a 2-inch screen to a 2.4-inch screen. And it's funny, the 2.4-inch screen come off of a DXG 579v. And let's see how this goes together. This is a little bit different than the DXG, the way the LCD screen is housed. It just slides out, and even the ribbon cable going to the display is exactly the same. Yes, no kidding. This display is identical to the display that comes in a DXG 579v. Now, let's go and continue on. Show you even more similarities. We'll get this back plate off here, and now I'll start tearing down the DXG 567v so you can see inside it. So anyways, now I'm going to get the DXG 567v tore down. Alright, the batteries are out of it. Now this camera, because of the modifications I've done to it, will be a little more difficult to get into. But it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Okay, got the cover off the DXG, and just have a look here at how close similar these two boards are. They're practically the same thing. Let me peel this serial number sticker off the main board on the Kodak so I can see a few more things. There's a very slight difference in the processor in these two cameras. The DXG 567v has an Ambarella A250C, and the Kodak Zi6 has an Ambarella A270C. This is a couple things to note. I'm going to go ahead and get this battery door off of here. Try to save this spring because the DXG 567 needs a spring on its battery door. Anyways, so yeah, just have a look here again, and you notice that these two cameras are exactly the same, and the DXG's USB mechanism was exactly the same. But of course, that's gone because I put this external microphone mod on here. Let's go ahead and take out the motherboard from the DXG, and then I'll do the Kodak Zi6. This is the other side of the mainboard assembly on the DXG 567v. Now it's going to take the one off the Kodak. Just lifts right out. Now I noticed, so let's see. Unplug this USB hookup. One difference I noticed is that on the Zi6 they have a negative lead coming from here, I guess for grounding out the camera's connections. I'm going to go ahead and take that off, because I'll never be using those connections. Just going to have a look at these two main boards side by side to give you a general idea. They're very, very close similar. The layout of the power switch, the buttons, and the toggle switch, everything is just so similar. And flip around to the other side. The Kodak Zi6 has a slightly different lens assembly, but that'll work on the DXG. No problem at all. No problem at all. Let me set these to the side, and let's go ahead and look at the secondary board assemblies in these cameras. Of course, you see in the DXG I got a whole lot of extra wires around because of this external microphone mod. it appears these boards are so close similar that I don't even have to take this board out. I can just reuse it because it still works just fine. That way I don't have to break out the soldering iron just to do this mod. Okay, another day. The reason why I stopped shooting video earlier was because I run into a little bit of an issue. The thing is, while the mainboard in the Kodak Zi6 is very close similar to the one in the DXG, I mean, the layout of the board is exactly the same. However, the dimensions of the screw holes and a few other things are actually a bit different. For example, the screw holes, the dimensions of the board, and the actual buttons on the board are not exactly in the same layout between board to board. So I could not use the Zi6 board and the DXG 567v camera. So I did a little bit of a teardown on the DXG. However, the secondary board that houses the hookups for the microphone, speaker, the power input, and that kind of stuff is exactly the same. In fact, I used the secondary board out of the DXG in the Kodak Zi6. So basically, here's what I did. This Zi6, the main issue with the Zi6 here was it had a cracked screen. So I took the screen off the DXG 567v, and well, actually, this outer piece, the LCD display, is actually from the Zi6. Let's have a look here. I just done a little bit of a switcheroo here, and now I have a much better designed microphone jack. I actually have a 3.5mm microphone jack rather than some sort of power jack like I had on the DXG. And this is a whole lot better, and this works very well too. I tested it with a fake Sony stereo mic, and basically these cameras are mono. They don't, I mean, in terms of audio input, they don't have a stereo input. So basically, what I had to do is I had to wire this jack to where both channels of a stereo microphone are actually wired in parallel. So in turn, you get half the impedance, more or less half the resistance. And that makes things a whole lot better. And the Sony, let me give you guys the model off of eBay. It's a Sony ECM-DS70P. Now, of course, the mic I'm talking about is a counterfeit one. It's not the real thing. However, it performs almost as good as the real thing. The fake microphone is like $5. The real one is like $50 to $70, so there's a big price difference between the two mics, and it works very well. And I also tested this microphone jack with a standard standalone computer microphone. That worked very good too. So basically, I have a switch here for this is external mic, this is internal mic, and this setup works extremely well. And I'll actually have a video review of a standard Zi6 up pretty soon. Now, let me go ahead and show you the camera I'm actually shooting video with right now. And I'll be shooting this video with this Zi6. Okay, now I'm shooting video with the modified Zi6, and here's a look at the camera I was just shooting video with. This is a completely stock, unmodded Zi6 camera. And this one here is in very good condition. There's a retractable USB thing. And I have to say, these are decent cameras. They do a whole lot better than the DXG 567v. By a long shot. So anyways, before I wrap this video up, I want to also go ahead and show you my external microphone mod for these cameras. This is for the DXG 567v and the Kodak Zi6, since they're so similar to one another. As I mentioned earlier, I use the exact same secondary board out of DXG and the Zi6 when I went to do so much soldering work because of my external microphone mod. This board here actually come out of the Zi6, but the main board is out of DXG. And this is just to show you how everything goes together inside the DXG 567v or the Kodak Zi6. And here's a better look at this secondary board. Here is where the power goes in from the battery compartment, which is from 2 AA cells. Here's the speaker, which goes soldered in right here. And here is the microphone connection. This is where you'll be unsoldering the microphone. You'll have to unsolder this, but keep this because you'll need it later. First thing you're going to do is, after you open your camera, you're going to have to get rid of this USB thing, because that's entirely in the way. And some people, like me, never use these things. I just take the card out of the camera and stick it into the computer. That's just my preference. So anyways, this has to go, and all you need is a screwdriver to get this out. But you also have to do some prying away with some plastic on the Kodak Zi6. It does require some prying away the plastic to make things work. Just to give you an example, let's look at the inside of my DXG 567v's case. Used to be the camera had a thick amount of plastic going around here all the way up through here. You'll need to have a pair of dikes and actually pry that away. So that way you can feed the wires and stuff through. And the good thing is about the USB thing is it simply unplugs from the board, and it goes plugged into the main board right here next to the lens assembly. All you gotta do is just unplug it and you're done. Now let's go and have a look at the schematic of how this is designed. This is a fairly simple circuit, and if you have some decent soldering skills, this should be very simple for you. So basically, as I just showed you here, the layout of the sister board, the connections, your battery connection, speaker connection, microphone connection, that kind of stuff. And basically how this works is you take an extra extra piece of wire and solder that to the positive connection on the PCB for the microphone. That feeds to the middle blade of a 3-blade switch. More or less, this switch, if you have it switched here, it sends power to one side. If you have it switched here, it sends power to the other side. That way you have a selection between one microphone or the other. And basically, you would take your built-in microphone, solder its, well actually, you'll solder its positive lead right here, and then keep the negative lead free just for a moment. And then you'll take the positive, you'll take some wire and make a positive run from this side of the switch to your microphone jack. And here's an exploded view of how everything's wired up on a 3.5mm jack. The way I have this designed is so that way, see, this is a mono camera, and if you hook up a stereo microphone, you prefer to have both the microphones still in use. So basically, those are running parallel. The positive connection hooks up to the A and the B, which is channel 1 and channel 2 for your stereo. Now of course, you're not going to have true stereo of this. Like I say, you're actually running your 2 stereo channels in parallel with one mono channel, if you get what I'm saying. So anyways, then this C right here is the return side, like the negative, and then you hook up your negative wire to that, and that comes through here down to your negative side, and you just wire these 2 wires together and solder them to your board. Now of course, you don't want to actually have your wire this long. This is just an exploded view of how things are. You want to try to have the wire as short as possible, because that way things are neater. It's a pretty simple circuit, and basically, as I showed you earlier, you'll hot glue everything into place on the side of the camera. And if you notice the way my modification is done, the jack is actually facing upward, because I bought a Sony stereo microphone off eBay for real cheap is like $5. So normally it's a $50-something microphone, but this is actually the fake version. It's real funny, but this microphone works very, very well, and it just plugs in, and it has the mics on top, and that way I can just plug it into the top of the camera and just go. Not have to deal with any extra leads of wire. So anyways, that's how the modification is done. It's fair to share it with you. If you have a Kodak Zi6 or a DXG 567v camcorder, this might be something interesting for you. So anyways, had any questions or comments, feel free to ask.